When everything starts to feel overwhelming, most people think they need more discipline, but that is not always the real problem. Sometimes burnout is already changing how the brain reads effort. That is why even simple things can start feeling harder than they should. And once you see that pattern clearly, you can finally understand what is happening and why it feels this way. Burnout does not always begin with mental fatigue. It often starts much earlier, when the brain begins reading effort differently. At first, nothing looks wrong on the surface. You are still functioning, still showing up, still getting things done. But internally, something begins to shift. The brain starts treating repeated effort as something it has to manage more carefully. When that happens, even normal responsibilities can start to feel heavier. Not because they changed, but because the brain is becoming more sensitive to how draining each task is beginning to feel. This is one reason burnout can be difficult to recognize early. People often expect it to begin when they stop functioning, but that is not always how it works. It can begin while life still looks normal from the outside. You are still handling responsibilities, still answering messages, still getting through the day. That is what makes the pattern easy to miss. The breakdown has not happened yet, but the weight of normal effort is already starting to change. And once the brain begins linking repeated effort with strain, it starts responding more cautiously. Not to stop you completely, but to reduce what it is beginning to read as too much. This is when small things begin to feel different. Tasks that once felt neutral start to carry more weight. Simple decisions take longer than they used to. Starting something begins to feel harder, even when you want to do it. It is not that the desire is gone. It is that the brain is becoming more cautious about how much effort it is willing to release. So instead of moving forward the way it used to, it starts slowing things down. You hesitate more. You put things off without fully meaning to. Even routine responsibilities can begin to feel like they are asking more from you than they should. Not because they suddenly became harder, but because the brain is trying to protect you from what it is beginning to read as too much. This is why burnout is often misunderstood. From the outside, it can look like a discipline problem. You want to do the task. You know it matters. But starting still feels heavier than it should. That gap is easy to misread. It can feel like you are losing focus or becoming less driven. But in many cases, the brain is not trying to stop you. It is trying to protect you. Just like the body starts slowing down when it is pushed too hard for too long, the brain can start doing the same with effort. When repeated effort begins to feel draining, the brain starts limiting how much it pushes forward. Not as failure, but as a way of preventing further strain. Once this pattern begins, it can start reinforcing itself. The more effort feels draining, the more cautiously the brain responds. And the more cautious the response becomes, the heavier normal tasks can start to feel. This does not happen all at once. It builds gradually. Small hesitations become more common. Starting takes more time. Finishing requires more push. Over time, even simple responsibilities can begin to feel like they are stacking up. Not because life suddenly changed, but because the brain is adjusting to what it is beginning to read as sustained strain. And once that loop forms, everything begins to compound and starts feeling harder than it should. This is why burnout can feel confusing. You still care. You still want to move forward, but everything begins to feel heavier than it should. Not because you stopped trying, and not because you lost discipline, but because the brain has started adjusting to what it reads as sustained strain. Once that happens, even normal effort can begin to feel like too much. And when effort starts feeling that way, hesitation increases. Progress slows, and the pattern becomes harder to recognize while you are inside it. But once you understand what is happening, you begin to see that this is not a personal failure. It is a pattern, and patterns can change.